each picture, and
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
Fortunately, a lot of my own viewers on Planet Sasquatch, which is my Facebook group, and some of my other, even on my profile, talk about this. The first one I was showing was it was across this road from someone whose dog had passed away, and I was just looking at the grave, and I looked across. I felt I was being watched, and there is a bit of a psychic, intuitive component to what goes on with me now. I know when I'm being watched. Okay, so I took a picture from across the street, and I usually have to explore the picture afterwards, on the computer. Which my best friend is photo paint shop or whatever, just for enlarging the photo so I could see a little bit more intently into it. And what you got here, what stood out was, here's this leaf, a gigantic, well, it's not really a big leaf. Up between the leaf and the bark, I'm looking, and there's this little person. He's only about 2 or 3 inches tall, but he looks just like a Bigfoot, which is pretty bizarre in itself. So I start zooming in. I show what I do in my pictures is I'll back away from this so it can show the leaf, I show the tree, and I show a little square with just slight enhancement in the middle. And then I show closer up pictures. There's a set of pictures here, the same thing, until finally I show the close-up of the head profile, and you can see all the detail of this head. You can see his hair, you can see his forehead, you see the nose, you see the mouth, you see the lips, you even see the way our lips are, where under our nose it has the 2 little ridges that come down when it meets the very center of the top lip. You can even see that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it is really, really detailed.
And what did you have to do to bring out all that detail on that particular image?
I use certain tools. I don't want to change the picture. I'm only interested in trying to enhance what's there. A lot of times what you're going to deal with is darkness of the photo, and I can see these. I can actually see these pictures unenhanced because I have trained myself through my mind to look through it, because most people are looking for a crisp, clear picture, and so what I try to do is translate that as best as possible to something that they can visualize themselves. So what I do is I need to bring the lighting up on the detail that's dark. So the contrasting, so I use lighting, contrasting. I use tools like clarity. A big one would be fade correction, which is a great, each one of these enhancements are great. Sharpness, and all these things are worked together in different combinations or in different order to bring out the pictures to the point where the average person, as much as the average people can see.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I understand how that works. Maybe a lot of people don't understand, but basically what you're doing is you're not changing anything. What you're doing is enhancing the image that's already there. So you're bringing out the detail, you're sharpening the image, you're lightening it up a little bit for the detail shows. That makes logical sense. Yes.
So the other, so on the slideshow, basically it's called Little Person Near Leaf, and that was the first one, and the set of pictures associated with that. The second one, it was a little person watching us after we did a cleansing ceremony. So me and my friend Anita, who, by the way, is also sitting next to me listening to the show, we went out to a certain area because people have been trashing the woods there near a fortress area, and we've been picking up trash. We're trying to be the better example of the human race. And we just felt that we wanted to do kind of more of a ceremonial using sage, using a feather, and, basically cleansing it spiritually around the area that we were called the fortress. While we were doing that, afterwards, after we sat for a bit, I took pictures of the surrounding area, and I found in my second set of photos a small being, and what stood out to me was he's in sitting position, and you can see, once I have the close-up on it, you can actually see his face, but what stood out more than anything else, he's wearing a gold cap.
Oh, wow.
A gold cap, a hat. It's round around his head, and then kind of comes up as a cone. And it looks like it has the design ridges all around it, okay? And that's very, very, very apparent in the picture. It was kind of remarkable that while I was looking at that and discovering it, Ancient Aliens came on with an episode, started talking about gold hats on some of the early ancients and what that could have been for, which one of their explanations was the gold cap on some of these royals, like in Egypt and all that, was to increase their connection with the gods.
That's very interesting.
Their connection, communication, telepathy or whatever, enhancing their own special abilities. That was, and this is not the first time I've seen gold caps on these beings in the fortress. I've actually have other pictures where I've seen it, and it looked like what they're wearing these gold bowls on their head. That's what I first thought they were, but there are numerous pictures I have of that, and then and some other people have come forward telling me they've seen the same thing.
Now, when you've seen these little people in photograph, have you seen them in any groups of, like more than one, like in groups of 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever?
Yeah, I just got I was just on Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. You may have heard her. She also does Coast to Coast occasionally as a host. She's a guest host for it. And I was just on with her last week. And we were talking about that. We were talking about the... I lost my train of thought. What we were just saying?
Well, if they were, in groups of people,
Oh, yeah, groups. One of the pictures I have, which I know I have here, is I'm standing there and I'm talking to them. I go out there and talk to them like I'm talking to you. I play a flute for these guys. I made a deal with them. It says, I have a certain flute call that I call out, and it's kind of like the signal for them to come out and listen to me play. And like the Pied Piper, go play a bunch of music, okay, on my flute. I have a Lakota Indian flute. And so I get done, and then I was over on one little part of the creek, and I started talking to them, and when I talk about things, I always talk about the relationship of humans with their world and our world, and how we're ever going to bring it together. How are we going to save the planet? What can we do, to work together? I mean, it's just the spiritual connection, so I'm talking about all this stuff. So I take the picture, and then I later look at the picture, and I start zooming in, I'm seeing, it looks like a crowd of people. If you ever look at a crowd of people zoomed out, you see they have all these very unique characteristics. I'm seeing at least 40 or 50 people stand. So I'm zooming in, and I see all these individuals.
Oh, wow. Now, a question. You say you see males and the women and stuff. Have you seen, like, little babies, with any of the women?
Yes. I've actually seen, because I've seen the babies, being carried in the front. A lot of the babies you see that sometimes they hang on to their backs and stuff like that. Seen that? Yep. The Bigfoots are really big about the little, even the little people hang on to the Bigfoot. There's a semiotic relationship between them, but the smaller Sasquatch, like the babies and things, they hang on to the adults or the juveniles. You see them hang, 2 or 3 of them hanging all over them. And one of the reasons they do, and I'm getting off topic here, but I want to mention this, is the one thing I see that they are doing when they hang a whole bunch of themselves, like a bunch of littles will start climbing on them in front of their face and top of their head, on the shoulders, because you know what it does to the image? It distorts it. If I look at a photograph and all of a sudden I see all these little faces on this central body area where I see a main face in the middle, but I see a face off the side, it really tends to fool people in thinking nothing's there, because that's part of their stealth techniques, is to cluster themselves like that.
That does make sense. Now, I got to ask you one question, Samantha. Have you ever decided or ever tried using like a little audio equipment, hidden microphones, and set up in the area to capture any of their sounds?
I don't want to. That will destroy our relationship because people have done that. They don't like something. They don't like to be spied upon.
Okay, that was just kind of curious.
What I do is when I take pictures, I have the camera. And what I do is say, I'm ready to take pictures now because I made a deal with them. I said, I'll play music for you. I'm taking pictures of the background. I know I can't see you, but I'll see you later on when I look at these pictures on the computer. And that's the deal I made with them. And sometimes I'm trying to encourage them to wave. I've actually seen some of them waving, in the pictures.
Oh,
so I know that they're there.
Now, have you ever heard any sounds from them or anything that you could hear?
No. Well, we hear things occasionally. I'll sometimes they move fast. So the effect that I've seen is like the scurrying off real quick, and I don't see anything. I see weeds weaving back and forth, and there's no snake or nothing, but it happens so fast. I don't hear any audible sounds.
Okay.
But then again, if someone's only 2 or 3 inches tall and yelling, and I'm way up here, do you think it's going to sound like much? It might sound like something high. I could only hear up to about 9 kilohertz. So if you take a ratio of my size and shrink me down to that, my speech pattern might be raised well above what I can hear.
Yeah, it's
quite this really high squeaking thing that maybe a dog can hear, but I can't, or younger people can hear.
Okay. Now, you don't take any animals or anything with you when you do this, right?
I don't have a pet, so not me personally. We do have, I do go out to the area with my friend who has pets and things like that, but they don't have much of a problem with that. No.
Oh, okay.
They have probably the best defenses for dealing with anything. They move very fast. I don't think there's any problem with that. It's just like the Sasquatch. We don't have to worry about trying to overly protect them from hunters. They know they're coming a mile away. They can feel it, and take appropriate measures. So.
Now, have you ever gone there with somebody and all of a sudden they got bad vibes with the person you went there with or anything? Where they either appeared then disappeared or didn't appear at all or anything like that?
You mean an individual with bad intent coming up?
No, I don't know. I'm not saying bad intent. Just somebody, we all give vibes off. And have you ever been with somebody while you were out there looking and maybe they were giving bad vibes off or they didn't show up because you had a stranger with you?
Yeah, that's happened. I'm a little bit careful about who I bring out there, and I can tell that if I brought someone there that they didn't like, I can kind of feel that person's unwanted. They don't mind me being there. They just certainly didn't want that other person there. And there's plenty of examples and people I've heard those experiences of the infrasound where they'll get in your head and they'll create fear. They'll do a certain vibration. It's usually around. It's under its audible range, so it's something like 20 kilohertz or less. It's above the audio. No, it's like 10 hertz, like some vibration that's subaudible, under the subaudible range. They can actually affect you emotionally, and they use those things too. And they'll know if you're not there for good reasons. They don't want you around. They'll put that fear in you, and you say, I'm feeling creeped out. I need to leave this area right now. And that's happened to a few people.
Now, Norman asked, could these little people actually be Bigfoot, which they could shape shift? That's what Norman's asking.
Well, I had the one that is I've had several very, very human-looking. One was the little white-haired guy I call Sal. And I may have talked about him last time, but he's my best picture, and he's a very human-looking being. He's got a nice hairstyle and everything, so he's definitely not a Bigfoot. So I don't think they're shape-shifting from being a human-looking thing, but I have seen some of the littles look just like Bigfoot. So it's making me wonder if the size doesn't matter. In other words, if you appear